Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. So the topic that I want to speak about today is an issue that I have to deal with quite often in my coaching practice, and that is about understanding what healthy and unhealthy boundaries are. Because when we fail to understand this, we fail to create those boundaries. And what happens, especially many years down the road, is you get an individual who is mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted and close to a burnout if they haven't already had a burnout. So what are boundaries, though? So in short, boundaries help you define what you are comfortable with and also how you would like to be treated by other people. They apply to any kind of relationship that you have, whether that's with a friend, family, with your spouse, your children, or anyone else in your life. So even though we talk about boundaries referring to, in relation to other people, in some ways boundaries are really the relationship that we actually have with ourselves. So they help, having boundaries helps us to honor our needs, honor our goals, honor our feelings, and also honor our values. And if we don't actually set healthy boundaries, you're likely to constantly be at the mercy of other people. And this means that you allow other people to tell you how to think, how to act, and how to feel. And it also means that you tend to spend a lot of your time and a lot of your energy doing what others want you to do over what you deep down truly want to do. And in the long term, this can lead to frustration, it can lead to depression because you feel unfulfilled and you feel lost. And at its worst, not setting boundaries allows other people to do things to you that are upsetting and sometimes even harmful. And I hear many stories of women who haven't set those boundaries, and they've got to this point where they're being hurt on many levels, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So it can be helpful to actually think about our own boundaries. And no matter what your relationship status is, it's important that we have those boundaries. Start by actually paying attention to how you feel about and how you react to situations around you. What makes you feel uncomfortable? What's important to you as an individual? What are your values? What are your principles? What are your morals and ethics that you want to live your life by? And what's important to you? And is there any type of behavior or trait that you would never tolerate from someone? Like it's called a deal breaker. Are there any traits or behaviors that you say, if you do that to me, if you behave in such a way, you speak in such a way, that's the deal breaker. That will be the end of our relationship. Do we have that? Do we know what that deal breaker is? Because oftentimes when we don't know what that deal breaker is, that's when we get ourselves into a very difficult situation in our relationships. And it's very difficult to then put those boundaries back in place. So unfortunately, as women, we start off as a disadvantage simply for being women. We may think that we've actually moved on from the ignorant times when daughters were buried alive, but we haven't. We may not be burying our daughters alive, well, not in this country anyway, but we are burying our daughters alive by burying them in so many limiting beliefs and instilling in them that they are weak, that they're more dependent, that they're not capable enough, that they're less worthy. And those subtle and not so subtle messages that we're giving them is damaging is having a damaging effect on their self-esteem, on their sense of self-worth, and their authentic true self. And we don't realize we do that. Simply that sigh when our daughter is born. What message are you giving? I've got 3 daughters, I've heard it. I've also heard people say, it's not that daughters aren't blessed, or they're not a mercy, or that we don't love them, but we fear for their future. Again, we're giving that message that they're weak, that they need taking care of. Personal boundaries and self-esteem actually go hand in hand. So if we have a high self-esteem, we actually have strong personal boundaries, and we're able to communicate effectively to those around us what those boundaries are, what we deem to be acceptable and what we deem to be unacceptable behavior. I remember one sister once told me that her children beat her up. Okay. Where did that start from? Where did that sister let her boundaries dissolve? On that first slap? We've all experienced the terrible twos. We've all experienced the children when they play up. So when did those boundaries start to dissolve? When your 2-year-old or 3-year-old slapped you and you let them get away with it? Because it must have started from somewhere. And then eventually that 2-3-year-old became a man who was stronger than you. So that's where you're in trouble now, aren't you? Because you never put those boundaries in place. So how do we know if we have unhealthy boundaries? Okay. If you allow your identity to be defined by those around you, you're not living your true authentic self, you know you're faking it. You know that the person that you're coming across or that is being shown into the world is not the real you. That's when you know you've got unhealthy boundaries. You're also allowing other people to tell you how you should be. People are shoulding all over you. Yes, we want to live by the Islamic framework and model, but most often that is not the framework that we're using. And in fact, that framework is actually being used and abused as a form of control. It's used as a tool to control us, and it's bent to fit the agenda of those that want to empower us. You also find it hard to make your own decisions. So are you one of those individuals that finds it hard to make your own decisions? You end up doing things to please other people. You end up doing what other people want to do as opposed to what you want to do. You don't make your own life decisions. You don't really know what you want. And if you are put in that situation, just completely go blank. It's because those boundaries have been dissolved. You've got unhealthy boundaries. Are you one of those people who really, really hate to let people down? You find it hard to say no to people. You're the yes person, the people pleaser. Yeah. By saying no to someone doesn't mean that you're being mean or selfish. It means that you're valuing yourself, and you're also making sure that after you've taken care of everyone, you have enough energy for yourself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Are you one of those people who just accepts things even when you don't want them? Do you ever feel that people take advantage of you or use your emotions for their gain? Know that your boundaries, you've got unhealthy boundaries. Are you doing what someone else wants, even if it's against your values, your ethics, or your moral compass? I have many sisters that say to me, I don't want to do that, but I feel I have no choice. And I say to them, you always have a choice. You're choosing not to have a choice. If there's one thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, He's given us a choice. And you're choosing not to exercise that choice. And the bottom line is that you should never be doing things that go against your values, your morals, and your ethical standards for anyone else. We want to, obviously, naturally, we want to sacrifice for the people that we love and care about. But it needs to be because we want to, not because we feel obligated to, or because we fear the consequences of not doing it. I want to do this, not because I feel that if I don't do this, I'm going to hear this, I'm going to get this treatment, and therefore I have no choice but to do that. That's another sign that we've got unhealthy boundaries. So as mothers of daughters, we have to realize that our daughters, we are a product of our environment. Our children are a product of their environment. And the first environment that they have been given is, the parent home. And so whatever's happening in that home is influencing them. So we can say one thing, if we're doing something else, it's that will actually influence them. So if they're seeing a mother, a wife, a daughter-in-law, a daughter, sister, completely sacrificing herself, completely sacrificing all her well-being on every single level, she's going to think, this is what good looks like. This is what a good mother looks like. This is what a good wife looks like. This is what a good daughter looks like. And therefore, that's what she's going to try and live up to. That expectation, which can sometimes be very unachievable. And you're living a life where you're living very dangerously on the edge of mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically destroying yourself. So if you look at boundaries, it can be traced back to our childhood, where you took on the message that if I don't do something, if I don't behave in such a way, I'm going to be rejected or I'm going to be abandoned. That's where we take it from. And so that's what we tend to do as we grow older. That if I don't behave in such a way, I'm going to be rejected or I'm going to be abandoned. And so we live our lives with no boundaries, especially with us Asian women. I think when you ask what are your boundaries, what constitutes respect for you, the women don't know. The women have never even been asked that question, or they've never even reflected upon that question. And it's really important that we know what our boundaries are. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't create you as in randomness. He created you with a purpose. And when He gave you this body, it was given as an imana. And we have to take care of that body, that trust, on every single level of our being. And it doesn't make us selfish when we have boundaries in place. What you're saying is, I won't violate your rights, but I also won't let anybody violate my rights. And nobody should get offended by that. And I think we have a lot of fear within us that assert those boundaries, we're going to get rejected and we're going to get abandoned. And therefore we put up a lot of the women put up with a lot of abuse. And it is a can of worms when you actually open that up. But I think that we as women, we as mothers, we have a duty towards our daughters to empower them. This deen, the Prophet ﷺ came to empower women, gave women a status in Islam. We bow down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the creation. Yes, we serve the creation, we take care of the creation, we nurture his creation. We also need to take care of ourselves, because through us, we can take care of others. So inshallah, like I said, it's one of those topics which is a kind of worms. So slowly, inshallah. I hope that it's given you something to reflect about. Any benefit is purely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any mistakes on our own. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.